The acrid stench of burning flesh hung heavy in the air as Maya Lee stood at the observation deck of the Terran flagship Genesis, watching her world turn to ash. Avalon, humanity's crowning achievement, their testament to environmental harmony, now resembled a demon's forge as Larashi warships rained hellfire from above. She pressed her palm against the reinforced glass, tears streaming down her face, knowing that this moment would forever change the course of human history. But to understand how humanity found itself at this pivotal moment, we must first step back and examine the grand tapestry of galactic civilization known as the Great Confederation. The Confederation was neither saint nor sinner, neither hero nor villain. It was simply there, as constant as the stars themselves, a bureaucratic behemoth that had maintained order across the cosmos for millennia. Its halls echoed with the footsteps of 1,000 species, each bearing names that spoke to their very essence. Those who climb, those who wander in strength, those who are one. These names were not mere titles, but promises, sacred vows that shaped the destiny of entire civilizations. Maya had been present when humanity first stepped onto this cosmic stage. As Earth's youngest diplomat at 32, she possessed an almost preternatural ability to read alien body language and navigate the labyrinthine protocols of interstellar diplomacy. She remembered the whispers and sideways glances when humans declared themselves those who run, a mistranslation that would prove darkly prophetic in the years to come. The Larashi in particular had watched humanity's admission to the Confederation with predatory interest. Known throughout the galaxy as those who scourge, they were apex predators turned spacefaring warriors, their sleek warships as deadly as their ancestral claws. Their ambassador, Kextel, would often engage Maya in what seemed like casual conversation, each word carefully chosen to probe for weaknesses. "Your Avalon," he had said during one such exchange, mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile among his kind. "It's quite remarkable. To transform an entire world into a garden, one might almost call it wasteful." Maya should have recognized the hunger in his eyes then, should have seen the way his claws tapped against his ceremonial armor whenever human colonies were discussed. But humanity was young, optimistic, naive. They believed their policy of peaceful cooperation would protect them. They were wrong. The Larashi had spent decades preparing for war, manipulating political situations and engineering conflicts that would allow them to invoke the ancient ritual of Karal. It was a brutal tradition from the Confederation's early days, allowing one species to wage unrestricted warfare against another with no outside interference. By the time Maya recognized the trap, it was already too late. The attack on Avalon came without warning. The Larashi fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm of razors, their weapons already charged. The planet's defensive fleet, barely a dozen ships strong, fought with desperate valor. But they might as well have been trying to stop a supernova with paper shields. The battle lasted less than 6 hours. Maya watched helplessly as the last defensive cruiser, the Dauntless, made its final stand. Captain Rodriguez and his crew managed to take 2 Larashi destroyers with them before their reactor went critical, adding one more artificial star to Avalon's burning sky. But the real horror began after the space battle ended. The Larashi could have simply claimed Avalon. They could have planted their flags and established colonies, as they had done countless times before. Instead, they chose annihilation. Plasma cannons carved burning lines across continents. Atmospheric processes turned the very air into fuel for the inferno. The great forests that had been Avalon's pride, centuries-old trees, transplanted from Earth itself, became towering pillars of flame. Maya's communication panel crackled with thousands of desperate messages. Civilians begging for evacuation, children crying for parents, scientists trying to save decades of research. But under Karal, no help could come. The Confederation's hands were tied by its own ancient laws. One by one, the signals went silent. In the Genesis's command center, Admiral Chen Wei stood rigid, his weathered face illuminated by the burning world below. He had served in Earth's last wars before unification, and Maya saw something dangerous awakening in his eyes, something humanity had tried to leave behind in its climb to the stars. "Send the footage to every human world," he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of steel. "Every colony, every outpost, every mining station and research facility. Let them see what those who scourge have done to our Eden." Maya found her voice, though it trembled. The Confederation. The Confederation, Chenwei cut her off, has shown us exactly what their laws are worth. They watch our world burn and hide behind tradition. He turned to face her, and in that moment, Maya saw humanity's future written in the lines of his face. We tried to be better than our ancestors, Ambassador Li. We tried to leave behind the savagery of our past. But the Larashi have reminded us of something important. What's that? Maya whispered, though she already knew the answer. We were never those who run. We were those who chase. And now, he gestured to the burning world below, they have given us something to chase. Within hours, the Genesis's quantum communicators began receiving responses from human worlds. Mining colonies offered their industrial might. Research stations volunteered to convert their facilities for military production. Merchant captains pledged their ships for conversion to warships. A species that had spent generations trying to overcome its violent past now turned those same traits, determination, ingenuity, and an almost terrifying capacity for adaptation, toward a single purpose. The Larashi had expected submission. They had expected those who run to flee before those who scourge. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous. A species that had spent its evolutionary history running down prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. A species that, when pushed too far, could match any predator in ferocity. As Maya watched the last flames die on Avalon's surface, leaving behind a blackened husk of a world, she thought of Earth's ancient hunters, how they had pursued their prey for days, never resting, never stopping, until even the mightiest beasts faltered and fell. The Larashi had started this hunt, but humanity would finish it. And they would chase their Who Scourge to the very ends of the galaxy if they had to. The transformation of humanity's merchant fleet began within days. Cargo holds that once carried grain and medical supplies were retrofitted into missile bays. Mining lasers, designed to cut through asteroid rock, were modified for ship-to-ship combat. But most importantly, the merchant captains brought something no military academy could teach: the cunning and resourcefulness earned through years of outmaneuvering pirates in the outer rings. Maya found herself reassigned to the Genesis War Room, where Admiral Chenwei was orchestrating what would become known as Operation Longbow. The name, she learned, came from an ancient Earth weapon that had changed warfare by allowing hunters to strike from unprecedented distances. It seemed fitting. Humanity was about to change the rules of space combat just as dramatically. The Larashi expect us to attack their military installations, Chenwei explained, his fingers tracing patterns across the holographic star map. Their entire strategy relies on us behaving like a conventional military force. A grim smile crossed his face. So we won't. The first strike came at Vakalat, but not as the Larashi anticipated. Instead of a frontal assault, hundreds of converted merchant ships dropped out of hyperspace at different points around the system. Each captain had been given a single objective: chaos. Mining ships used their industrial-grade tractor beams to pull Larashi patrol craft into each other. Fuel haulers deliberately ruptured their tanks, creating clouds of explosive vapor that turned space itself into a weapon. The Larashi commanders, trained in classical military doctrine, found themselves facing an enemy that refused to fight by any known rules. Their formations were broken up by swarms of smaller ships that seemed to care nothing for their own survival. Their targeting computers, calibrated for military vessels, struggled to track the erratic movements of civilian ships, piloted by crews who had spent years dodging pirates. Maya watched the battle unfold through the Genesis quantum feeds, her hands clenched so tight her nails left crescents in her palms. The human losses were horrific. Nearly 30% of the merchant fleet was destroyed in the first hour alone, but they had achieved something unprecedented. They had made those who scourge feel fear.
"Send the second wave,"
Chenwei ordered, his voice steady even as damage reports flooded in. The real warships, hidden in the chaos of the merchant assault, began their attack. The Larashi, their formations already shattered, their defensive screens already strained, found themselves facing an enemy that had used their own arrogance against them. Vakalat fell in less than a day. But even as human forces secured their first victory, Maya noticed something in the Admiral's expression that chilled her. There was no joy in their triumph, no satisfaction in proving humanity's strength. There was only the same relentless focus she had seen in his eyes as they watched Avalon burn. "The Larashi think they've started a war," he told her quietly as reports of victory filled the command center. "They haven't. They've started a hunt. and we will chase them across every star, every planet, every dark corner of space, until they understand exactly what they awakened on Avalon." The next months proved his words prophetic. The Larashi found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Their supply lines were disrupted by merchant ships turned commerce raiders. Their communication networks were infiltrated by civilian hackers who had spent years protecting colonial data networks from pirates. Every victory they claimed seemed to cost them more than they gained. But it was the psychological warfare that truly broke them. Human ships would appear in system after system, not to attack, but simply to be seen, to remind those who scourge that those who chase were always watching, always pursuing, never resting. The most terrifying aspect of humanity's pursuit wasn't their military might, it was their patience. When the Larashi would fortify a system expecting a massive assault, the humans would simply bypass it, cutting off supply lines and isolating it until the defenders were forced to abandon their positions or starve. When the Larashi would scatter their forces to protect multiple targets, the humans would strike with overwhelming force at a single point, then vanish before reinforcements could arrive. Maya found herself documenting each phase of the war, not just for military records, but for the historical significance of what was unfolding. She watched as the proud Larashi royal family, who had ruled their empire for millennia, began to splinter under the relentless pressure. The turning point came at the Battle of Meade. The Larashi had assembled their largest fleet yet, determined to crush the human forces in a single decisive engagement. Their warships filled the space around the mercantile planet, their weapons primed for what they believed would be their moment of triumph. They never saw the real attack coming. While their attention was focused on the human military fleet approaching from the front, hundreds of civilian ships dropped out of hyperspace behind Medi's largest moon. These weren't converted merchants this time. They were passenger liners, their hulls packed not with weapons, but with soldiers. While the Larashi fleet engaged in what they thought was the main battle, human forces were already landing on their planet. The Larashi fleet already landing on their planet. Ground warfare, Admiral Chen Wei had explained during the planning, is where we truly excel. The Larashi evolved as ambush predators. We evolved as persistence hunters. Let's see how they handle an enemy that never stops coming. The fighting on Meade lasted weeks, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Larashi soldiers, trained for quick, decisive battles, found themselves facing human troops who would retreat from an engagement only to reappear hours later, wearing down their defenders through constant harassment and attrition. Maya walked through Mede's capital after its fall, recording the aftermath for posterity. The Larashi defenders had fought bravely, but they had been facing an enemy that operated on a fundamentally different understanding of warfare. An enemy that didn't seek glory in battle, but simply victory at any cost. The capture of Mede sent shockwaves through the Confederation. Species that had once viewed humans as naive newcomers now watched with growing unease as they systematically dismantled one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. The Larashi's requests for aid, forbidden under Karal, became increasingly desperate. But the true horror for the Larashi came when they realized that humans weren't just fighting a war, they were hunting their royal family. Each member was tracked with terrifying precision. Those who fled to neutral worlds found themselves exposed by human intelligence networks. Those who hired mercenary protection discovered their guards had been compromised. One by one, they were captured. Not killed. Death would have been a mercy. Instead, they were transported to the blasted surface of Avalon, forced to begin the centuries-long work of restoring the world they had destroyed. Maya remembered watching the capture of the Larashi crown prince on Oblot. The human hunter, Lieutenant Amara Patel, had pursued him for over a year on foot across the planet's hostile surface. When she finally brought him in, half-starved and broken, he had begged for death. "Death is easy," Amara had told him, her voice carrying across the Genesis's command center through her final transmission. "Living with what you've done, that's the real punishment." As the war drew to its inevitable close, Maya found herself in a private meeting with Admiral Chen Wei. The victory celebrations were beginning across human space, but the Admiral's expression remained grave. "We've shown the galaxy something dangerous," he said, studying a hologram of the newly reorganized Larashi territories. "We've shown them that humans don't just fight wars. We hunt our enemies to extinction if pushed far enough. The Confederation will never look at us the same way again." Maya nodded, understanding the weight of his words. They'll fear us now. Fear can be useful, he replied, but it's also dangerous. We need to show them something else now. What's that? Mercy, he said, simply. We won't exterminate the Larashi. We won't enslave them. We'll reorganize their empire, yes, but we'll also help them rebuild. Because that's the other thing that makes humans different. We can choose to stop chasing. As Maya prepared her final report for the Confederation archives, she reflected on how a simple mistranslation had shaped the course of history. Humans weren't those who run, nor were they simply those who chase. They were something far more complex, a species capable of both relentless pursuit and profound mercy. The galaxy would never forget the lesson learned at such terrible cost. Never provoke those who chase. Because once they start hunting, they don't stop until they choose to. The aftermath of what became known as the Great Hunt reshaped galactic politics in ways no one could have predicted. In the Grand Assembly Hall of the Confederation, Maya stood before representatives of 1,000 species to present humanity's final terms for peace. The silence was deafening, not from respect, but from fear. The once mighty Larashi delegation, now split into 12 smaller groups, sat scattered throughout the chamber. Their representatives no longer wore the ornate armor of their military heritage, instead dressed in simple robes that spoke of their humbled status. Maya could see the tension in their postures every time a human delegate moved. The terms are simple, she began, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. The Larashi territories will be divided into autonomous regions, each with its own government. Trade between these regions will be monitored for the next 100 cycles to prevent military buildup. The royal family and those directly responsible for Avalon's destruction will continue their work of restoration. She paused, letting her next words carry special weight. But we are not here to announce further punishments. We are here to extend a hand of peace. A murmur of surprise rippled through the assembly. The Confederation had seen countless wars over its long history, but few victors had shown restraint at the moment of their triumph. Humanity will establish a restoration fund, Maya continued, open to all Larashi regions. We will provide technical assistance, medical aid, and educational resources. We will help rebuild what the war has destroyed. Not because we have forgotten Avalon, but because we choose to be better than our anger. Admiral Chen Wei, now bearing the scars of countless battles, stood beside her. His presence was a reminder of humanity's military might, but his next words spoke of peace. We have shown you what humans become when pushed to war, he addressed the assembly. Now let us show you what we can be in peace. The Larashi are not our enemies anymore. They are our neighbors, and we will treat them as such. In the years that followed, the galaxy watched with fascination as humans proved as relentless in peace as they had been in war. The same determination that had hunted down the Larashi royal family was now turned to rebuilding shattered worlds. The same ingenuity that had converted merchant ships into warships now created new technologies for planetary restoration. On Avalon, Maya stood with Amara Patel, the legendary hunter of Ublot, watching the first new trees take root in the regenerated soil. The former Larashi crown prince worked nearby, his once proud bearing humbled but not broken, carefully tending to seedlings that would take centuries to mature. Do you think they understand yet? Amara asked, gesturing to the Confederation observers who frequently visited the restoration project. What we really are. Maya smiled, remembering all the names humans had been given. Those who run, those who chase, those who hunt. None of them quite captured the truth. We are those who endure, she said finally. We chase when we must, we fight when we're forced, but what truly defines us is our ability to keep going, to rebuild, to forgive, even if we don't forget. As if to emphasize her words, a flock of birds, the first to be reintroduced to Avalon's skies, soared overhead. Their songs, carried on the newly cleaned air, spoke of life returning to a world that had known only death. The Great Hunt had ended, but humanity's true legacy was only beginning. They had shown the galaxy their capacity for vengeance, yes, but now they would show something far more powerful, their capacity for renewal. In the end, that would be their most enduring name, not those who chase, but those who rebuild. And in the centuries to come, when other species faced their own disasters, they would turn not to the Confederation, but to humanity. Because they had learned that humans would pursue any goal with the same relentless determination, whether it was hunting down an enemy or healing a broken world. That was the true promise in their name, and one they would keep for generations to come. As our tale of humanity's relentless pursuit of justice and subsequent path to peace comes to an end, I hope this story has kept you on the edge of your seat. If you enjoyed this journey through the stars with Maya Li, Admiral Chen Wei, and the determined spirit of humanity, please don't forget to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you have done in humanity's position? Would you have chosen the path of absolute vengeance, or, like them, found the strength to rebuild and forgive? Let me know in the comments section. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more epic science fiction tales that explore the depths of human nature and our place in the cosmos. Hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we upload new stories of intergalactic conflict, redemption, and hope. Until our next adventure among the stars, this is Channel Name, reminding you that the greatest stories are the ones that show us who we truly are.